Hello and welcome everybody to this series on Python for beginners. In this video, we shall be addressing the question, what is a variable in Python? So, a variable in Python can be considered to be a container that stores values. So, for example, you can see that there is a container and it's storing some values. This container can also have its own name. For example, name is a variable and it has the value John stored into it. Age is a variable that is storing 35 as its value. Honest is again a variable that is storing the boolean value true in it. So variables in Python have data types, that is integer, string, floats, booleans, and you do not have to explicitly declare these data types. So what the interpreter does is, if you are declaring a variable x and to it you are assigning the value 45, the interpreter knows that 45 is an integer value. So automatically it assigns the data type integer to the variable x. Similarly, name is also a variable and dataflare, a string value, is getting stored into it. So the interpreter knows that dataflare is a string value, so it assigns the data type string to the variable name. Also, 1, 8.5, 9 are the values being stored in a list, and this list is being assigned to the variable nums. So the Python interpreter knows that 1, 8.5, 9 is a type of list in square brackets. So it assigns the data type lists to the variable nums. Let's see some more examples. X, Y, Z are all variable names, and in it we are storing 7, 3.14, 159 and true as the values respectively. So the interpreter knows 7 is an integer value, 3.14, 159 is a float value, and true is a boolean value. So it assigns these data types to the variables itself. Now let's see how variables in Python can be declared. What are their naming conventions? So there are certain rules as to how you can name a variable. So the name of a variable is known as identifier. So in Python variables, these identifier names can begin with AZ in uppercase or lowercase or with an underscore only. So no digits, no special characters can be used in the beginning of a variable name. It will not be a valid identifier otherwise. And the rest of the identifier can contain letters, can contain numbers and also underscores. Now there are certain special words in Python that Python is using to carry out different functions. These are known as reserved words or keywords, and they cannot be used as identifier names. That is, they cannot be used as the names of the variables. For example, import, def, true, false. Finally, if, else, if, elif, for, which is used in loops, conditional statements, boolean values. So these values Python is using to perform certain kind of functions. So these cannot be used as identifier names. Let's code in Spider IDE and get a more detailed look on what variables are in Python. So let's see the first rule of naming variables, which is variables must begin with AZ, AZ or with an underscore. So let's name the variable as starting with a special character. So let me use the $sign, then X, and store a value of 10. If I'll print this value, which is $x, let's see if this gives an error. So let me run this, and yes, it's giving an error, and the error is that it cannot run the file. So if I instead use an underscore in the beginning and replace here as well, so this goes by the rule that underscores can be used when in the beginning of naming an identifier. So let me run this again. and it's printing 10 over here. So I can also just remove the underscore and start the variable name with AZ in uppercase or in lowercase, and let me run this. It's again printing 10. So the next rule is rest of the identifier can have AZ in uppercase, lowercase, 09 or an underscore. So let's explore this. So if I have a variable named x07, okay, let me use just a07 and I'm assigning it a value hacking flex, which is a string value, and then I'm printing A07. Just let me print, and then if I'm running it, so hacking flex is getting printed. So this holds true. There can be numbers in between or at the end, but the starting of an identifier should only be with uppercase A, Z, lowercase a, z, or with an underscore. And now variables cannot store reserved keywords. So as we have seen, reserved keywords can be false, can be true, can be if, else, elif, can be for. So let's use one of these. So if I am declaring a variable like x and storing in the value if, and then if I'm printing x, so it will throw an error again. But if I turn it into a string, so if is a string over here, so this will run well. So if it is getting printed. So let me comment out this one, this print, and this print. So again, if I used any other like for keyword over here and tried to print the variable, then again it's throwing a syntax error. So lastly, we'll explore that keywords cannot be used as identifiers. So let me use the keyword false and assign a value to it like 009, and then if I'm trying to print out false, then this will again show me a syntax error. So this is all about the first segment of variables in Python. Let's continue.